Hello, students. Today we will begin with our novel, which is Robinson Crusoe. It is written by Daniel Defoe. Daniel Defoe was born in 1660 and he died in 1731. And he was the son of James and Alice Foe, and he was born in London. His original name was Daniel Foe, but he changed his surname to Defoe later on. And he traveled extensively in Europe, and while he was hiding in a church because there was a rebellion that was against the king of that time, it is there in that church he saw the name Robinson Crusoe carved on a stone, and later he used this name in this famous novel. I sent you a video about this story of Robinson Crusoe in short. I hope you must have seen it. This central character is Robinson Crusoe, and another character in this book will be Friday. And this story is about how Robinson Crusoe stays on an island for 28 years and then he is saved by a set of pirates. So let us begin with how it all started. Chapter number 1, page 1, Shipwreck. I was born in York in 1632. This I is Robinson Crusoe. He is the one who's supposed to be writing this. He's the first person here, and he's mentioning his own self as I. We will also keep one bookmark on page 49 because that is where the word meanings of this chapter will be. So York, as you look at it, it is a historical walled city in North Yorkshire, which is in England. So this person was born in 1632. My father gave me good education and wanted me to be a lawyer. He advised me not to leave home and go abroad. Abroad means any foreign country. I thought about his advice, but I could not give up my desire to become a sailor. I could not settle down to business. Now, Robinson was very inclined towards, traveling around the world. His father wanted him to be a lawyer, okay, and he never wanted him to leave the home. But Robinson gave a lot of thought to it. He wanted to become a sailor, travel the world, and he could not settle to do one business. I met a friend at Hull one day. Underline Hull. Hull is English seaport. He was going to London in his father's ship. I also boarded the ship with him. I had not informed my parents. As soon as the ship set sail, there were winds and high waves. So what did Robinson do? He thought of sailing with his friend to London. Okay? And he did not inform his parents. He got onto the ship, and he says that as soon as the ship set sail, there were winds and high waves. I became seasick. Now, seasick is something like, children, what we feel when we travel in buses. Some children feel like vomiting. Okay, so when you are traveling on sea, because of the motion of the waves, seasickness also happens, and because of that you feel like vomiting. I vowed to return home if I ever got my foot upon dry land and never set it into a ship again. So during that time, he decided that if I get back to the dry land that is on the port, I am not going to get back into a ship again. So this sometimes comes to us when we get onto any ride in an amusement park. We all see, for example, the giant wheel. If I would just quote myself, the giant wheel always appears very adventurous. But the moment you get onto it, it's like you just want to come down at any cost. And you promise yourself you never would go back into that giant wheel. So similarly, here Robinson Crusoe was excited to get on the ship. But the moment he got on, he felt very seasick. And he promised himself that if he gets a chance to come back to the dry land means here the port. Okay, and vowed means promised. You can refer to page number 49 for all the meanings of the difficult words. So he promised himself that he would never get back to the ship again. The weather cleared the next day, so the high tides etc. settled. My friend assured me that it was not a storm. I forgot the vows made in distress. So we also make that vows sometimes in distress. For example, the giant wheel goes very in too much of speed, we just want to come down and promise ourselves next time we are not coming, but the moment it slows down we just forget our promises. It also happens with us. So those are vows made in distress. Okay, distress is when you feel some kind of a uneasiness or some kind of a pain that you're going through, that is distressed. Now the weather was fine, so he thought that it's okay, I can manage. We reached Yarmouth on the next day. So that's again a place, a town in England. On the sixth day. So when the ship set sail, on the sixth day it reached Yarmouth. Now children, just remember, sailing through the ship, it will be slower than going through the airways or roadways. Okay, so it takes more time. We rested and made merry. So they, after traveling for so many days, they took rest and they enjoyed for some time. There was another storm after 2 days. So just like in the sea, those of you who ever traveled through sea, storm just keeps coming like anything. So after 2 days, another set of storm came back. I could hear the master praying softly as he went about his work. Now, the master was praying softly, that because the storm had again come, so someone was praying softly. Okay, probably to just request Lord to keep the climate in place. I had never seen such a dismal sight. Dismal means a sad sight like that. The sea was high as a mountain. So just imagine if the sea waves just go high as a mountain, what a terrible sight it would be. When the tsunami had hit in 2004, it was such a similar sight at that time also. Okay, the waves were high as a mountain. Now it says the mate and the boatswain begged. So boatswain is the naval officer. Okay, it is written the charge of one who's basically a vice captain, if you want to understand, the vice captain who's in charge of the ship lifeboats. Okay, mate is another person who's in charge of the ship only. Boatswain begged our master to let them cut away the foremast. The master would be here the captain of the ship. Okay, so they requested them to give him the permission to cut the foremast. The foremast is basically, if you've seen in that picture, if you see basically the canvas that helps the ship to you navigate. Okay, with the help of that canvas, if you can see on page number 2, the canvas is helps the ship to navigate. That actually helps in direction of the wind, and that's how it moves forward. So they wanted to cut the foremast, so in order to control the ship's movement also. He consented. Consented is he gave permission. The deck became clear. Okay. Then the deck is the the ship deck where people normally move about. The storm continued. We had a good ship, but she was so heavily loaded that the seamen cried that she would founder. Now the ship was carrying a lot of goods on it also, so the ship was very heavy. So what the seamen thought, that the ship would probably get stuck in mud. Founder would get stuck in mud. Then one cried out that we had sprung a leak. That means because of the high tides, the ship was probably moving about here there. It might have developed a hole through which water could pass. Okay. I fainted out of fright. Now just imagine a boy who's not told at home that he's going on a ship sail, and not just that, he's seasick also, he's scared of storm, and in front of him the one seaman is crying and saying that there's a hole there in the ship. I was roused and asked to help pump out the water. So obviously the winds are, the tides are too high, so water is coming on the deck. Now this person just fainted out of fright hearing this. There is a leak in the ship, but that someone just got him up and asked him to help them to pump out the water of the deck. The master had fired a gun as a signal of distress. Now, those of you who've seen any movie where the ship is there, for example, Titanic. So, when in distress, what happens when you think the ship is going to sink? There is an indication that the naval officer or the captain of the ship uses. That is a signal. What do? They fire a gun which just gives out, just that just, it's more or less like a cracker or a rocket that you use in Diwali. Just it just illuminates in the sky, and someone who's on the sea in the sea can see that and carry that as a signal. So we call it the signal of distress. That means it is basically an SOS to save someone. That is when it is used. Okay, so the situation was very bad. The master had fired a gun as a signal of distress, thinking that the ship had broken or some dreadful thing had happened. I fainted again. Now this boy is not very old. He's just looking at it and he sees the master, firing a gun, which is a signal of distress. This person Robinson assumed that something bad is going to happen. He fainted again. A boat came over. I was back in my senses by then. We got into their boat. So some other boat came over. Okay. After 15 minutes, we saw our ship sink. So this ship on which they had all their goods, and this friend's ship, it was father's ship. So they saw that ship was sinking. We also sighted the shore. Many people helped us. So they also figured out where the shore was, and other people were also helping them. Although my reason urged me to return home, yet I had no power to do it. Now, obviously, he is a boy who did not tell his parents and just got out of home to with someone else on a ship sail, is out of home for 6 days, and that ship is also sunk. How will he have the courage to go back home? My friend, the master's son, introduced me to his father. So, the one who owned the ship, the master, his son was Robinson's friend. There is where the introduction happened. He did not like my coming on his ship and advised me to return home. Obviously, the friend's father would have not liked this boy not telling his parents and coming onto the ship unannounced. I left him without giving him an answer and travelled to London, where I stayed for some time. So he did not bother to give him an answer, and we went to London. I decided not to go back home because I did not want to be laughed at by my neighbors. Instead, I went on board a ship bound for Africa. So this Robinson, he wanted to become a sailor. He wanted to travel. He thought that if he goes back home, neighbors would make fun of him. So he thought of going to Africa and boarded another ship. I had come to know the master of that ship while I was in London. So he stayed there in London for a few days. There is where he got to know about this master or this owner of the ship. He had got to like me and had offered me a free passage on his ship. So he became his friend, and because of this person of the other ship, master of the other ship, offered him a free passage. Passage is a free, more or less a free ticket. Okay. So when you have words, given, you can refer to these words also, and just helps you to understand difficult words. Okay. So let's move on. The honest captain taught me the rules of navigation. This voyage made me a sailor. So navigation is the movement in the sea, what they do. Okay, the ship, how to move, which direction. I also picked up some gold dust in Africa, which I sold in London. So he was not just sailing, he was also doing some merchant business also. The profits that I earned increased my desire to go on another voyage. So he brought in something from Africa, which is sold in London, which is gold dust. And because of the profit, he wanted to do this again. Unfortunately, the master of the ship died and his mate became the new master. So this person who offered him a free passage, he died, and the next person became the new master. I decided to go for my next voyage on the same ship. I left 200 pounds of money with the captain's widow and boarded the ship. So this captain who offered him the free ticket, Robinson left 200 pounds to his widow, his wife, because this captain was dead, and then he boarded the ship. But misfortune befell me again. So what happened this time again? Misfortune means bad luck. What would have happened? Again, something bad. We were attacked and taken by pirates as prisoner to Sallee. Underline, pirates are basically the sea dacoits, if we say. Okay. And while the rest of our men were taken by the emperor's court, I was made the captain's slave. So other people were taken to be the slaves, or at the emperor's court, but Robinson was supposed to be with the captain slave. I remembered my father's prophetic words that I would be miserable if I went out into the world alone. So, at that moment of time when he was taken up as a slave, he remembered his father's advice. And there is where he thought that his father said true, that he would, if he went out to the world alone, his life would be miserable. When my new master went to sea again, so he had a new master, he would leave me on the shore to look after his garden. Now he is the slave, so his master, whenever that master used to go to the sea, he would leave Robinson on shore to look after his garden. I remained there for 2 years. Underline this line, he remained with the master for 2 years. As I could catch fish easily, my master, whenever he was home, would send me sometimes with a Moor to catch fish for him. The Moor is, underline, a race of Africa, an African person with whom he used to go and catch fish. On one such occasion, a thick fog made us row into the sea. Now, they did not know that they were going towards the sea. A thick fog made us row into the sea. Warned by this incident, my master repaired and renovated his. Whenever he went out for fishing, he took me along with him. So he just, the master got scared that the slave might just disappear. So next time he went out for fishing, he took him along with him. It so happened that my master once decided to go out in his boat with few Moors as his guest. So, race of Africa, Moors are race of Africa. And master decided that they could go out on his boat with few these Africans as their guest. He collected large store of provisions. Provisions are basically the food supplies, and some gunpowder and shot. Just in case if they need anyone to help them, they would use the gunpowder to create this noise and light so that people can help them out. But the next morning he told me that the plan had changed. The guests were not coming. He ordered me to go out with the boat to catch some fish with the Moor and a boy. I decided to take full advantage of this opportunity. I told the Moor to get some bread, as we should not eat our patron's food. I also got some wax, thread, a saw. Underline all these things, a hammer and a hatchet. Now basically these things, hatchet is a light short handled axe. Provisions are foods and supplies. So what did he do? He brought all these things. Wax is there, thread, a saw which you cut things, hammer and a hatchet. All these things, a light short handled axe, and gunpowder was already there. I pretended to catch fish but did not actually do so. So he had something in mind. Thus we sailed farther and farther. Then I threw the Moor overboard. Now this person was very smart. He wanted to escape from the being slave of this master. So what did he do? He, while going to buy some provisions, he brought all these things also on the boat, and then he went on. They sailed farther and farther. And then what did he do? He threw the Moor overboard. That means he threw that person, the African person, out of the ship. He, being an excellent swimmer, swam towards the shore. Then I turned to another boy, whom they called Zuri. The boy swore to be faithful to me. Now there were 3 people on the boat. So then the other person he wanted to throw away was Zuri. But this boy said that he will be faithful. I changed my course and steered southeast. So he changed the direction. He wanted to sail away from that place. I sailed for 5 days. Underline. So with Zuri along with it, he sailed for 5 days. When I reached a creek, now they are sailing. They have provisions of eating also, bread etc. also is there. Now they are sailing away from the place. A creek is basically a narrow area of water where the sea flows into the land. Okay. When I reached a creek, I decided to swim out in the dark for fresh water, because they were in the not the fresh water. But then there were very dreadful noises of wild creatures. Now they got scared. Zuri was dreadfully afraid, and so was I. A huge creature swarmed towards our ship. Something was there. When I fired at him, it turned away. So they had gunpowder also, and Robinson made use of it. We had to go on shore for fresh water. Zuri returned to me with the creature he had shot and informed me about fresh water that he had found. So Zuri just returned with some creature that he had shot. We filled our jars and prepared to go away. Now it is very important for them to drink water also, and that is why they filled the jars and prepared to go away. Children, I will stop here today, and the rest of the pages we will do in the next class. So give it a reading once again and mark the difficult words and find the meaning from the dictionary or on the help of on page number 49. Thank you.